Hey, welcome to this session sponsored by IBM DevOps Community, how to integrate IBM UrbanCode Deploy with Instana for fast feedback and MTTR. My name is Laurel Dixon-Bull. I'm a product manager for IBM DevOps products. I've been with IBM for almost 20 years. I've worked in software development, release management, several client-facing roles, including customer support. And in the last few years, I've been in IBM DevOps product management. And I'm joined today by Randy. Randy, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, and welcome everybody to the webinar today. My name is Randy Langhennig. I'm a member of the worldwide IBM DevOps SWAT team, and I've been at IBM almost 24 years now. In different roles as well. Thank you again for joining. Look forward to the session today.
Great, thanks, Randy. Randy and I work in IBM DevOps, and our mission is to help customers to create a better software delivery experience. It's important that software make people's lives better, and that includes the people working in software delivery and development. How do we do that? Well, we do it through our IBM DevOps tools. We improve development and delivery operations. We reduce security and compliance risks, and we help customers to deliver solutions faster. One example of an IBM DevOps tool is UrbanCode Deploy, and that's what we're going to talk about today. As part of our talk, we'll focus on UrbanCode Deploy. It automates the deployment of applications through environments. In this delivery pipeline, we see the major phases of delivery. Development happens in development tools. The developer commits code changes to an SCM. This triggers a build of the software using a continuous integration tool, and the software is deployed automatically, in this case with UrbanCode Deploy, to any target environment, dev, test, or prod on any platform. UrbanCode Deploy is used by 7 of the 10 top global banks and 9 of the 10 top US banks because it makes the deployment of applications repeatable, predictable, auditable, traceable, and can handle tricky deployments. By tricky deployments, I mean deploying applications to a variety of platforms from Kubernetes to ZOS, blue-green and canary deployments, and also deployments of hybrid applications that combine microservices and traditional components like a database schema. Randy's going to give us a quick tour of UrbanCode Deploy so you can get an idea of the tool and its capabilities. The major concepts that you'll recognize in UrbanCode Deploy are the application that will be deployed by UrbanCode Deploy, the components that make up the application, the environments the application is being deployed to, and then the deployment process itself. So over to you, Randy, to show us UrbanCode Deploy.
Great, thank you, Laurel. So let me quickly show you, this is the UrbanCode Deploy web console. And you can see as I log in, I can see a listing of different types of applications. As Laurel mentioned, it can support deployments across the spectrum, from mainframe deployments to, data power related deployments, or, WebSphere, Docker related deployments. It can do all those things. So let's just take a look at an example. I'm going to filter this list using this tag, but for our demo today, we're going to be working with an application called eShop on containers. You can can see it here actually. And we're going to be deploying an update there. But if I look at this particular application, UrbanCode Deploy leverages an application model, which is really comprised of 3 different parts. First part are your target environments. This is really your pipeline, dev all the way to production. The second part of the model are your components that make up your application. And you can see a couple of those components here. One thing that's great about UrbanCode Deploy is it does track inventory of what versions are deployed where. And it also has a really nice feature that allows you to create snapshots of these versions. Once you know that these work well together, you can create a snapshot and then promote that snapshot to the next environment. Let me show you the last part of the model. Before I do that, I'm going to go to this component and just show you that you can see with that use of inventory, you can see over time what versions have been deployed in each target environment, which is really quite nice. This is really, really great. And one of the things I just want to focus on briefly, then I'm going to pass it back to Laurel, is you can design processes in UrbanCode Deploy at the component level and the application level. This is an example of a component process. And you can see it uses a visual process designer, and it has plug-in steps on the left-hand side in this left-hand palette that you can drag and drop over into the design. So it's really, really quite nice. And I think one last thing I just want to touch on, and then I will pass it back to Laurel, is, our application, there's many customers using this client, the capability across the globe. Automation's obviously the focus, and it's really good at that and provides those repeatable processes. But one of the benefits our clients really find is the history of deployments that you have within UrbanCode Deploy over time. You'll have those. You can see that history here. And there's a really great trail of audits. So if I go into any one of these deployment requests, I can get the who, what, where, when, how details here from a trail of audit. And you can drill into any one of the steps at the bottom of this process to see what happens. It's an excellent solution that our clients love. With that, I think I'm going to pass this back over to Laurel now. And bear with me just for a second. Let me stop sharing my screen. There you go, Laurel. Back to you.
Hopefully you can see my chart now. All right. Thank you, Randy. I think that gives people a general idea of UrbanCode Deploy. So just to recap, where it fits in the delivery pipeline is UrbanCode Deploy picks up the build package to send it to dev or test or prod in a repeatable, predictable way that ensures quality and compliance. Once the application is running in production, we can consider the job done for UrbanCode Deploy, right? Well, or maybe not. Once the application is running in production, there could be problems. I think many of us are familiar with this term, MTTR, or mean time to recovery. It's a critical measure for the security reliability engineer. It's also critical to the entire business, because if there's a problem with the application in production, that means a poor customer experience and potentially loss of revenue. UrbanCode Deploy would get involved in deploying fixes and patches if there were an incident in production, or possibly roll back the application. This would be easy to figure out in UrbanCode Deploy to find the previous version. And so in that way, UrbanCode Deploy would help with this metric, MTTR. And UrbanCode Deploy can reduce MTTR through an integration with IBM's Instana. So that's really the second product we'll focus on today. And Randy's going to introduce Instana and how it integrates with UrbanCode Deploy to improve mean time to recover. All right, back to you, Randy.
All right. Thank you, Laurel. Do you want to move the slide?
Yep, I will. Sorry, I will do that.
Okay, perfect. All right, so we're all familiar with monitoring, but what about observability? Observability isn't a substitute for monitoring, yet the two are complementary. The overarching benefit of observability is that with all things being equal, a more observable system is easier to understand, easier to monitor, easier and safer to update with new code, and easier to repair than a less observable system. More specifically, observability directly supports, the agile DevOps SRE goals of delivering higher quality software faster. I love this slide. I love that match that you see there, providing some visibility. But you're going to find with Instana, it's almost like a flood lamp. You're going to see so much more than what you have in the past. So observability enables an organization to discover and address unknown issues you don't know exist. Observability can discover conditions you might never know or think to look for, then track their relationship to specific performance issues and provide the context for identifying root causes to speed resolution. And the second thing it does is it helps you to catch and resolve issues early in development. I really like this point, but observability bakes monitoring into early phases of your software development process so that DevOps teams can identify and fix issues in new code before they impact the customer experience or your SLAs. And this is really what we're going to show in the demo later. You'll see that we're going to do a deployment into a QA environment, but we're trying to catch these and identify these issues much earlier. All right, let's move to the next slide. Okay, at a high level, there are three capability pillars that Instana brings to our clients. The first capability, as you see here, is automation. One of the core tenets for effective APM is to get the maximum amount of visibility with the least amount of effort. And this is really where Instana shines. It provides automated full stack application visibility, including real-time change detection, mapping, tracing, and profiling, all with a 1-second granularity and no sampling. This is really, really great. The second capability, as you see here, is context. Instana provides accurate data using its high-fidelity data collection, and this data is collected into context so that you can trace from user impact down to line of code. This is really good. You'll see this shortly in the demo. And then the last capability, which I really love, is the concept of intelligent action. Instana can analyze incoming data in real time. It can uncover anomalies and service issues automatically, and it can create incidents simultaneously. You can configure alert channels in Instana to send an email, Slack message, a PagerDuty related message, and much more, actually, to make your team members aware of issues without you having to be inside the solution. It's really, really quite nice. All right, let's move to the next slide and talk a little bit about how you get started. So the first challenge in adopting observability tools is, how do you deploy the solution? Instana was built with the idea that everything should be as automatic as possible. This includes the installation of the agent. So no matter whether you're installing Instana as a Docker container, which Laurel and we did this for this demonstration, a Kubernetes daemon set, or just as a standard Windows or Linux process, everything is designed to be as autonomous as possible. So it's really, really easy to get this agent up and running. Now let's go to the next slide. Perfect. Okay. Once the agent is installed, that is where the additional automation comes into play. This means automatically understanding what is on the host and doing so without the operator having to tell Instana what is there. As you can see here, it's detected that there's an HA proxy, a PostgreSQL database, all the way down to the Spring Boot application. Instana is intelligent enough to detect these things autonomously and configure itself for monitoring. You may be asking, well, how does it do this? What's going on behind the scenes? Well, Instana comes with over 100 different sensors that automatically discover these components, like a Docker runtime as an example, and then what's running within the Docker container. All the sensors discover this for you, actually. And speaking of sensors, the sensors, are what help to collect the changes, the metrics, and events. It's high fidelity with 1 second metric granularity, and every request is traced automatically. And these are complete traces. They're not sample or partial traces. And this is what I really love. You kind of see this warning sign on the slide. You see that little warning, orange. It says one issue. The sensors come with out-of-box curated knowledge base of health signatures that are evaluated continuously against the incoming metrics. You can think of them as they help to find anomalies, and there's heuristics that are built into these sensors, or preset health rules. And so when it sees something that looks unhealthy, it can create an issue for you automatically. And you can see the alert right there on the screen. In this case, when we were setting this up, we had a high CPU related issue, and it found this for us automatically. It's really, really quite nice. So this is a really great feature, and we're going to show you a bit of this in the demo here shortly. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, we were just talking about those heuristics a little bit. You can build this out. But one of the things that is great about Instana is, what's next? Once you're up and running with the solution, typically our clients don't sit looking at dashboards, and they're out-of-box dashboards that you get with Instana, which are fantastic, waiting for things to turn red. Rather our clients rely on the anomaly detection routines to alert them when things go wrong. Again, Instana has a system of built-in events. The events represent the heuristics of the anomaly detection. You can build it out as well, Laurel, if you want. Event examples for the host include disk running out of space, CPU usage running too hot, and frequent TCP failures as an example. And when the events fire, they become alerts, and you can send those alerts down an alert channel, as I was just speaking about. That can be an email, Slack, a PagerDuty. So this is a really, really great solution. And with those alerts, Instana will help you with the root cause analysis. Instana can really help our clients detect these hidden issues, and it can really provide a great solution to help you reduce your MTTR, mean time to recovery, as Laurel was mentioning earlier. All right, we have one more slide, I think, and then I'm going to pass it back really quick. But one thing that's really nice about Instana is that there's a concept of a release marker, and Instana has a release marker API that you can leverage. So you're going to see this in the demo. This is a screen capture of our component process in UrbanCode Deploy, but you'll see that there's a step within that process that leverages the Instana release API, so that we're making Instana aware of the deployment that we're doing right now into that target environment. And what it does behind the scenes is it will decorate the telemetry in Instana with a marker showing you the point in time at which you did that deployment as you do your observation. The other thing that's great about it is you can go back in time if you need to. You can focus time in Instana to when that release took place, and then you can go gather the data around that release and observe what was happening at that time. This is really, really helpful and a great capability. So, okay, Laurel, I'm going to let you kind of do this slide, and then we'll get to the demo.
All right. Yeah, I'll take it back real quick, Randy. So here we see the standard DevOps diagram with those phases of software development and delivery. And the whole idea with DevOps, right, is to have this continual loop where you get feedback, you do some work, you get feedback, so that you know you're always doing the right thing. But for Randy's demo, he's going to focus primarily on the right side of the diagram, on UrbanCode Deploy and Instana, which you've already been introduced to. He'll also show briefly Rational Performance Tester and UrbanCode Velocity. You'll see a little bit of them as well. All of these products have a role to play in improving MTTR. So with that, Randy, I'm going to hand it back to you.
All right. Thank you, Laurel. Okay, I'm going to share my screen again here. Great. Okay, so hopefully you can see that.
Yep.
Perfect. All right, so we're going to be deploying an update to our eShop application. You can see this is it, where our clients can go in and order different items and check out and have those shipped to their home address or address of choice. This is the application we're about to update. Now for this demo, I'm going to go ahead and start over in UrbanCode Velocity. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time here, but this is really what's going to drive the deployment through UrbanCode Deploy. We, as a team, are using Velocity to help with our releases. And you can see sort of a pipeline here that can contain 1 to n number of applications. I've got a single application here, but let's go ahead and deploy the latest version, 6.2, into our QA environment. I'll go ahead and click this deploy button and select our latest version, 6.2, and click deploy. All right, now one thing about Velocity is it has this concept of a deployment plan. Let's go ahead and click on this plan real quick. You can have, within a deployment plan, you can have different segments, and I've got a pre-deployment task segment here that can include different steps, maybe some manual steps and perhaps an approval step. These are just examples. You can see I have an approval here. Let me approve this for our demo. I'm just going to go ahead and do that. And then this next segment will begin. And this is really where my automated steps are, where I'm integrating with UrbanCode Deploy to deploy our application into that QA environment. You can see that that deployment is in progress. I can actually click this link. It'll take me to that deployment. For our demo here, I'm just going to go ahead and click on the UrbanCode Deploy tab. Click on the dashboard, and the dashboard in UrbanCode Deploy will show me our running deployments at that point in time. Let's click on the details button here. Again, with UrbanCode Deploy, a really excellent trail of audit as we spoke about earlier. And we can see it's in the process of performing our deployment here. I can expand this and see that, okay, it looks like it's in the process of starting. This is a Docker Compose related application. Keep in mind, UrbanCode Deploy can deploy many different types of applications, whether it's traditional type of on-premise application like a Webster application or a Kubernetes related component. We can deploy to the mainframe. It's an excellent solution across the board, but I really want to point out this one step. You can see it's sending Instana a release marker. This is what's making Instana aware of this new deployment that we just performed. And this is going to be nice. You'll see in a moment that it will allow us to focus the time to that particular point in time where the deployment took place. Now at the very bottom, we are going to run a performance test. And the reason for this is we want to simulate users interacting with the application. And as if, this was a production environment where applications were interacting with, customers are interacting with the application. So that's what we're about to do here in this run performance test area down at the very bottom. And you can see now that that's about to get started. There we go. All right, so this is going to initiate our rational performance test. That looks like that should be started now. Let's switch over to the application. Let's refresh this application and see what's going on here. Let's reload the page. Okay, well, this is a bit of a cause of concern with this latest version. It seems like the icons aren't being displayed here. That is a bit concerning. Let's see if we can still interact with the application, if other features are working properly. Let's log in to the application, and all right, that's working fine. Let's just add a couple of items to our cart. Yeah, it looks like this feature is working okay for us, and I can actually filter on different things if I want to. Let's add this as well. Okay, we have 3 items in our cart. I'm just going to go quickly here and see if I can check out properly, provide my shipping address and my order details. Let's place the order and verify that it's being submitted. Yes, it looks like it's being submitted fine. That's good. That's good news. And let's go to the bottom and just click continue shopping to get back to this page. Okay, so now that we've done that, there is something going on here, but let's go into Instana to see what's happening behind the scenes. All right, so this is the Instana web console, as you can see here, and you'll notice on the right-hand side that it's notifying me that a release has just occurred. This is really nice. You'll notice that you can click right here to focus time to the release if you want to. Since it was just 4 minutes ago, there's no need for me to do this, but this is nice. This concept of a release in Instana is really quite nice. So I'm gonna click outside of this actually, and let's now go back and take a look at our infrastructure. Of course, I clicked on the wrong thing. There we go. Now, this is our host right here. One thing I would just want to note again about Instana is when you install an agent, it automatically discovers, different components that are installed on your application. It's really, really nice. And you can see for our hosts that we're using today, it's discovered some, details about the operating system, memory, different details there. But again, for the applications themselves that are there, it's automatically identified those for us. You can see our .NET Core applications, we have some JVMs, a MongoDB node. It's discovered all this for us behind the scenes. This is really, really nice, and it'll configure itself for monitoring. There's no need for an operator really to tell Instana what's there. It does that for you, which is great. It's great. Now let's open up the dashboard here and let's take a look at what's going on behind the scenes. This is what's called the host or infrastructure dashboard. But with this, you notice you can see our CPU usage, our memory usage, our CPU load and context switches. We can see that. And notice right here, that's the marker. So when we sent that release marker for our deployment, it'll mark the telemetry for us. You can see right at that point in time what was happening behind the scenes. This is really quite nice. And you can see the context switches are really kind of up there a bit. We are definitely placing some load on the system as we speak. And scroll down, you can see the details around memory usage and swapping details and open files. It's really great. All these metrics, again, are high fidelity. They're coming in at every second. And you can see that our CPU usage is up there, that's for sure, along with the load. So that we're definitely placing some load on the system here. Okay, so one of the things that's great about Instana, notice this contextual menu at the top, the stack menu. I really want to take a moment here just to talk about some additional capabilities that Instana brings to the table. This menu allows you to see the full stack that makes up your application, including, services being used and the endpoints. Again, Instana at its heart is an application performance monitoring or APM solution. And this is really where it shines, and it shines, against the competition as well. It's really great. leverages its built-in auto trace capabilities that uses that no sample approach we were talking about earlier. And this helps you to really understand the interaction between components in your environment, from a monolithic application to many microservices and the messages that are passed between them as well. This is really, really quite nice. Let me show you what I mean by that. Let's scroll down and let's just take a look at, as an example, this particular service, the Basket API. When I click on this API, you can see the number of calls here. This is really, that number's gone up as a result of the load test. We are seeing some erroneous calls. This is an area of concern that we need to really dig into, and we'll do that shortly. You can see it's also providing you with latency metrics as well, which is good to know. You know, we're beginning to see latency with your applications. We want to know about it, and so on. Now, I was just talking about how it understands the flow of the messaging between the various components. You can see right here, it's showing us that flow. And if I click on this little icon right here, this allows us to see the messaging that's taking place. And this is really quite nice. You can see right there, there's that red dot. This is, gosh, it's really highlighting a potential issue here with our logging using Logstash. This is interesting. One thing that's neat about this is Instana really tracks 3 golden signals, or KPIs. And one of them is around latency. And you can see, if I click here from a latency perspective, it'll show you where there's potential latency here, highlighting it WebMVC here. But also from an erroneous call perspective, it's going to highlight that. And you can see Logstash. We definitely have something going on here from a Logstash perspective. We're going to drill into that in just a minute. One other thing about Instana is it will track all the errors that it's seeing, and we're seeing some erroneous calls here, along with log messages. It'll do that for you, which is great. Really nice feature of the product. Let's go back to the contextualized menu real quick. And this time I want to click on the application perspective, so you can see that we just saw an example of a service, right? The Basket API. The application perspective will contain all those services. These are the services around that application. And I just spoke about those golden, sort of KPIs or metrics that are tracked by Instana. You can see those right here, the calls, the erroneous calls, and latency, health. All that detail is here, which is really great. And you can see right there very easily in Instana, we definitely have something going on with Logstash here. So anyway, I just wanted to show you that. But back to this application perspective. Again, I can see the calls, I can see the erroneous calls and latency details. I want to show you this time, if I click on dependencies from an application perspective, I can really see how these different containers are communicating with one another behind the scenes. This is really quite nice. Again, you can see the messaging, and notice it's highlighting right there for us a warning. Something is going on here that needs to be looked at. And this is really where those heuristics come into play, the anomaly detection that comes with Instana. This is really a great capability. Now, one of the things I want to show you here is with Instana, you get excellent analytics. Let me show you really quickly. If I go to this view and analyze button right here around my erroneous calls, you can see those calls are going up, actually, and this is a cause of concern. You can drill into analytics here, and you notice the different groups down here. And again, you can see some of those KPIs. let's take a look as an example just at the Logstash, this grouping around Logstash. If we drill into this grouping, we can see there are some post messages that are happening to Logstash, and you can drill into any one of these. So let's click on this particular post. When you do this, this allows you to see the full call chain, what was happening at that point in time. And you can see that there's an internal trigger that is in the application that's trying to post some information over to Logstash, and we're failing. You can see right over here on the right-hand side, details around the stack trace, which is great. And one thing that's great about Instana is, I mean, obviously in this case, as somebody that just did this deployment into the QA environment, obviously we can't allow this to move forward into production. That Logstash mechanism needs to work, and it looks to me like it's not configured properly, because you can see we're getting a name or service not known message right here. We can copy this message and it'll get copied to our buffer. We can send it to our team members. We can download the details around this particular call and share that as well with our team. And this is really great, especially if you have a kind of a post-mortem meeting to discuss what happened with the release. Now we can bring all this data with us to that meeting and share that with the team, so that we can create incidents or issues that will drive changes in our application to fix problems that were found. This is so helpful and beneficial to our clients, and really helpful when you think about mean time to recovery. We're able to really shine a light on these problems. Sometimes they're hidden problems, identify them quickly, and then roll back if need be, or make the decision to move forward. Everything looks good. Okay, there's one other thing I want to show you. Let me go back really quick. This is also really quite nice. Now, obviously, in this case, I'm looking and finding these issues, right? But maybe you're not always going to be in Instana. What you can do, notice this Add Smart Alert button at the bottom right. What you can do is have Instana do the work of leveraging its heuristics and anomaly detection, and have it, in this case, if it finds erroneous calls, it can alert you of an issue just through the tool itself. And you can create different alert channels in the tool, and certainly add those here and select that alert channel, and it will send an email or send, like I was saying earlier, messages to the appropriate parties, so they're made aware of these issues right away using these smart alerts. This is really a great feature of Instana. Okay, so looks like our test is almost done. It's still running. I want to show you one last thing that's really great in Instana. And in the left-hand menu, as I click here, notice the websites and mobile apps menu item. This is what's also called the EUM portion of the application, end user monitoring. This is really great because it really gives us a view of what's happening from an end user perspective, what they are experiencing from an end user perspective. So I can see the page loads and on-load time, the mean and 90th and 95th percentile, load times. I can, if I click on speed, I can see some performance related metrics around, page loads and first paint and first input delay and cumulative layout shifts. I can see those details within this interface, which is really great. Of course, if you'll see all the HTTP requests, and our rational performance tester instance is really generating a lot of these calls. but it'll also show you if there's any JavaScript errors, you're going to see those as well. One thing that's really interesting in Instana is if I click on this geography subtab here, you can see where requests are, the page loads are coming from. In our demo today, they're all coming from the US, as you can see here. But this is really valuable because you may be able to see there could be errors coming from a particular, location, right, in the world, and you'll be able to filter this list down to that particular region if you want. There's some filters at the top of the page. Let me just show you those really quick. As an example, if I click on OS, you saw me earlier, I actually was interacting with the application from my Mac laptop. So if I click on Mac OS, these are the page loads that I did actually a while back. So those 3 page loads. I can go back actually and we'll get back to the full list, but same thing from a browser perspective. I'm using Firefox right now. Our RPT instance is using Chrome. So you can filter that here as well. It's not a problem. It's just really a very helpful solution to have in your back pocket. I think having this end user perspective along with all the other analytics I was showing you a moment ago that you get on the back end with Instana is incredibly valuable as you observe the application and your environment. And I think these capabilities alongside UrbanCode Deploy really can help your team in the area of MTTR improvement. So, and as I was mentioning, we have a kind of a serious issue. One is these images aren't being loaded. The other is, the messaging around the log stash isn't working properly. So let's roll back this application. I'm going to go back to my value stream and velocity, go to eShop, and then I'm going to go to my pipeline. And you can see 6.2 is there now, but we need to really roll this back. So I'm gonna click the play button here, and I'm gonna pick the previous version from this list, actually, and let me just type it in. Sorry. There we go. And click deploy. And when I do that again, it's going to deploy from the plan. We can go to that plan again. A plan can have manual and automated steps in it. I'm going to go ahead and approve this, and then it will begin again the deployment. We're just going to roll back to that previous version using a tool like UrbanCode Deploy. It's very easy to do that, which is really great. And as a team, we will meet. We'll have our post-mortem. We'll make sure issues are open based on the findings that came from Instana, as you saw in the demo today, and we will continue our process and journey of becoming an elite DevOps organization. So with that, Laurel, I'm going to pass it back to you so you can help wrap up what we've been reviewing today.
Okay, thank you, Randy. I'm sitting here watching your demo. I just couldn't help but think, you're a real expert on UrbanCode Deploy, right? You're a deep specialist on that tool, and how quickly you've come up to speed. Well, really, how quickly you've mastered Instana. I think it really speaks to its ease of use and its intuitive usability, and also the synergy between UrbanCode Deploy and Instana, because you can use UCD to deploy that Instana release marker, right? So just the synergy between those two products is really great. So, all right. So just to wrap it up here, by adding Instana to the delivery pipeline, the pipeline becomes a continual tight loop that ensures quality of delivery, but also stability and quality in production. This is accomplished by UrbanCode Deploy, including Instana bits in the application when the application is deployed. Instana then monitors the application and reports any issues, And if there is a problem with the application, the data provided by Instana helps to quickly isolate the problem. And if a fix to the app is needed, UrbanCode Deploy quickly deploys it. MTTR is reduced or better, problems are avoided completely. So I want to thank everybody for your time today, and I encourage you to visit the IBM product websites on UrbanCode Deploy, IBM DevOps, and Instana, and to also join the IBM DevOps community. You can scan this code and it will give you the link to join the community. So with that, I think when we check the time, we have some time for some questions, which I saw a couple come in. If you haven't put in your question yet, feel free to log one in the Q&A. But let me see what we have here. I have one. Okay, this one. All right. In your demo, you mentioned that you used a global type of Instana release marker. What is a global marker for Instana?
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah, as you look at the Instana release marker API documentation, you can actually send release markers at different scope levels. Maybe you saw me view the basket API service. You can have it really focused at the service level if you want, as an example, or you can have it at an application scope. But I use the global marker really because, as you saw, that global marker works across all the different built-in, displays that you get within the tool or dashboards. So it's really quite nice that way. And working with some of our Instana experts at IBM, they really recommended the global marker. So that's what I used. Great question. I really appreciate that question.
All right. Here's another one. How is Instana different from other APM tools or from their competition? So I can take that one. I think probably the primary differences are it doesn't use any sampling. All the data that is available, related to the infrastructure and the application, that's going to be gathered. It's not sampled as some other APM tools do. Also, the ease of getting started, the automation built into the product. We saw how easy it was to install the Instana agent, how fast Randy himself has learned the Instana product, and how out of the box there's so many things from KPIs to dashboards, all kinds of views. And you don't have to configure the product, right? It's pretty much does the discovery and configuration out of the box. So, and the other thing I would mention too is Instana was acquired by IBM, and it was really built for cloud native applications, microservices, containers. And since it has become an IBM product, it has added other capabilities for different kinds of architectures, to serve the IBM enterprise customer that has all kinds of applications. So I would say probably those are the three primary things.
Yeah, good point. I didn't get a chance to show you, but in that contextual menu that allowed us to see the full stack, around that application, there was on the right-hand side an infrastructure tab. I should have clicked on that because it will show you. In my case, I'm running containers. You just mentioned cloud native. Mm-hmm. It will show you in that contextual menu each of your containers, and you can drill into any one of those. It's really really nice. Yeah, good point.
All right, and there's one other here so far. Okay, so here's an enterprise question. What if the application we want to monitor is on the mainframe?
Oh, great. Yeah, great question.
So
Yeah.
speaking of infrastructure, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Instana will work for your mainframe deployments as well. And of course, UrbanCode Deploy, which we showed you in the demonstration today, is very strong and has been tuned by our IBM development team to really work well against your, for mainframe deployments. And then when you couple that with Instana and you have this observability, it just really leads to really great results for our clients. Your deployment frequency increases, your MTTR metric is going in the right direction, and you can really become an elite DevOps organization as you measure these results. So yeah, Instana works for the mainframe as well. Great question.
RPT too, right? The performance tester will also work for ZOS applications as well.
It will.
So let me see if there are any other questions. That is it. So I think with that we can end this webcast, and I thank everybody for joining us today. Thanks, Randy. Bye-bye.